Hey, Lonzo Ball, it's your agent.
What's up?
I've got a commercial opportunity for you from Buzz Ball's Ready-to-Go Cocktails.
Nice. My last name is Ball. The product is a cocktail in a ball. I get it.
That's what I thought, too, but no. They want you for your hands. They think your big hands will show off the size of their new Blue Biggies ball.
Big blue balls? Really?
Get blue balls this season with Buzz Ball.
Please drink responsibly. Buzz Balls available in spirit, wine, and malt. 15% alcohol by volume. Buzz Balls LLC, Carrollton, Texas.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Hello and welcome once again to the Trail Daddy podcast. I am Dave Deckard, managing editor of Blazers Edge, and we are here to talk about Trailblazers and NBA basketball. First of all, a big thank you to everybody who helped out with Blazers Edge night. That was this past week. And because of you, 1,900 almost kids, chaperones, teachers, principals, counselors, all those folks got to go see the Blazers play the Cleveland Cavaliers. The most exciting part of that night, of course, was the upper bowl was loud and it was full. There was actually, if you look up attendance, there was actually about a 1,200-ish person bump in attendance from your normal attendance at the Moda Center this month. And that was due to you guys. And we thank you for sending 1,900 people to see a game. It was, for many of them, their first game. We're getting notes and letters in thanking us and describing that experience. We'll share some of those with you on site. But we absolutely love the chance to do it. We will do it again next year. It'll be the 20th anniversary of the website. So we'll have a big to-do probably, and it'll be a good time. And we just thank everybody. We thank Bud and Brian and our angel donators who gave big donations, but also everybody who sent in even one ticket. You changed one life. You made a difference that night, and that's a big deal. So thank you so much. Now, the Blazers are a slightly different story. When last we talked, they were getting ready to embark on a winning streak. They indeed beat the Toronto Raptors and Washington Wizards, both of which were pretty expected. And they had a couple of quality wins against the Memphis Grizzlies and the Denver Nuggets, albeit without Nikola Jokic, which has been the story lately. I mean, the Blazers have joined a number of NBA teams who have kind of lucked into, let's say, favorable opposing starting lineups. A lot of superstars have been sitting against the Blazers. Now, some of that is injury. Some of that might be taking a night off, so to speak. And this is one of the things, again, we addressed this on site. If you think the Blazers are doing better, you're correct. If you think the Blazers are actually ready to make the leap to good, we haven't quite seen that yet for a few reasons, and one of which is opposing teams still aren't taking them entirely seriously, neither in the meta sense of the whole game, nor sometimes quarter to quarter. You'll see opposing teams ease up and the Blazers come back and then they put the clamps down. Sometimes that comes back to bite them. But Portland is playing the schedule in front of them. That's all you can ask them to do. But boy, they've missed a lot of superstars lately in the opposing uniforms. In any case, took advantage of some of that to build a 4-game winning streak. No John Morant against Memphis either, by the way. But then the Boston Celtics came to town, and that turned things around just a little bit. It is never fun to meet Boston. Boston actually did this to Portland almost at the beginning of the month, that the Blazers were on a streak winning 5 games in 6, and they took the Cleveland Cavaliers to overtime in Cleveland, so they almost were 6 for 6. Then they met Boston and lost due to 3-point shooting and went on a losing streak. Now the Blazers are on a 4-game winning streak. Boston comes to the Moda Center. The Blazers lose, again, missing a star for the opponent, but still the 3-point shooting is too much. The Blazers lose fairly handily, and then they embark on a losing streak. The Cleveland Cavaliers beat them, And then they lost to the Sacramento Kings. And it's not so much remarkable that they're losing, but there's some commonality now, even in some of their later wins, but also now in their losses, that some of the basic things are starting to wear down. The Blazers are not playing good percentage defense. It's another way of saying the Blazers are not playing good interior defense. Opponents have been making hay on them in the paint. The interior defense, if Donovan Clingan is not in, is just completely absent. It's one thing to say you're going to field a bunch of 6'5" to 6'8" guys who can switch everything. That lasts about as long as the opponent stays 5 feet or farther away from the hoop. But as soon as you get those matchups inside one-on-one where you've got a 6'10" guy against a 6'6" guy, that 6'10" guy is going to score. And that's been happening. And also, frankly, the containment on penetration hasn't been very good. You may have noticed throughout the year that obviously Denny Avdia, Toumani Camara are better at containing and shadowing perimeter dribblers than most. But opponents have learned not to go at those two so much, at least not at Toumani. And now they're picking on your Anthony Simonses, your Scoot Hendersons, your Shaden Sharps. And they're getting a first step. They're getting into the lane. And once they get that first step, get just a little ahead or even with their defender, no help is coming that makes a difference. And therefore, it's a layup that ends up being as easy as elevating over that defender, which most of the time is happening. Portland's been giving up, 50, 60% in the paint, sometimes 50, 60% for the game. The other disturbing thing is the transition defense has started to erode as well. The Sacramento game, you saw that especially, but in some others, Blazers just aren't getting back with the same alacrity that they did. So something has crumbled. It's probably a combination of, experienced big men being injured. Jeremy Grant, don't forget him. DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams III are nowhere to be found, leaving Donovan Clingan and a bunch of wings. So, that's part of it. It's certainly lineup or roster based, but also it feels like the Blazers have hit that no man's land in the season. And I think they probably realize it. These guys have got to be following the standings. They know that the chances of them making the play-in tournament now are vanishingly small, especially after these 3 losses in a row this past week. They're not going to catch Phoenix or Dallas probably. The chances of them catching both of them, needing to gain 5 losses on both of them to overcome the tiebreaker, are vanishingly small. So there's nothing above them to play for. Below them, it feels like, they're playing around in the 8th through 11th seed of the lottery. I'm not sure players would strive for the lottery anyway, because that's bringing in more competition for their spot, right? But even if they were, there's only so far down you can go. And at this point, that looks like the 8th spot, and the Blazers are already in the 9th spot. So, hey, it's, it really is no man's land. There's nothing to play for up or down, just a few odds and ends to tie up. And it feels like it. Look, when I was driving back, if you made the drive from Portland East, if you go out I-84, that actually goes to right through Boise, where I live. And, the first part of the drive is scenic and wonderful. You get the Columbia River Gorge, Multnomah Falls. You're familiar with that, of course. But all the, you get the Dalles and the dams and the river gets wilder and it's awesome. And then you get out of Boardman, the end of the gorge, and that's okay. There's the Blue Mountains. You get past Pendleton, stop for a milkshake there, up the Pendleton Hill, the beginning of the Blue Mountains. That's great. But you get to a part around LeGrand or Baker City or Ontario, Oregon, where if you're going to Boise, you're still an hour or 2 hours away. You're still 100 miles away from the end of your journey, but you have a lot of journey behind you. And you're going like, why am I not there yet? Let's just get there. And, I wish it seems like a long way to go for very little gain. That's about where the Blazers are. The Blazers are hanging out around LeGrand in this trip, not quite to Ontario. And you can't see the end in sight quite yet, but it's close, but you're not there yet. It's that frustrating part of the journey. And they're playing like it. Frankly, there's been you've seen some frustration among the players, but also just a general almost resignation among the players. The defense doesn't get better. If they're going to make runs, they try to make them by shooting 3-pointers off of isolation. They're not kind of running the offense such as it is. You don't even see the half plays that the Blazers run. It's just get some guy the ball and he isos his way, dribbles his way into a 3-point shot that you hope goes in. And when it does, it looks okay, but mostly it doesn't. And so there you go. And that's how the Blazers have been losing. And really, that's almost how they were winning some of those games against lesser opponents before. It's caught up to them. There's nothing surprising about this. They're probably going to lose a few games as the season ends, but that's not a bad thing. One question is there anything left to prove here? I would say team-wise, there's really not. The Blazers have shown who they are. I don't think anything's going to happen in the next 8 games that's going to change things. Nothing's going to make it better, and nothing's going to take it away. I mean, they're going to have a losing season, but not as dramatically as they have in the last couple. Fair enough. They're still not good, but they've made some progress. They've shown some defensive ability. They've had some young players grow. I mean, that's about what you were looking for from the year. It's about what you'd expect. Now, the wins may be slightly higher than pundits expected, but the flavor of the season was about what was expected. Hey, good try. Marginally more effectiveness than we thought, but nothing that's going to cause the national public to stand up and take notice. Nothing that would necessarily change the future of the team, the immediate future at least. Their fortunes still rest in the upcoming draft above all, and then beyond that in whatever trades or roster decisions they make in the summer. This is still very much a team in transition that needs more parts, that needs more depth, that needs more everything. This is not a team that's on the cusp of being finished or ready to compete. And I don't think anything that happens in the last 8 games is going to change that. The Blazers play the Knicks, the Hawks, the Raptors and Bulls, the Spurs, the Jazz, the Warriors and Lakers. 4 of those games are against winning teams. 4 of those games are against losing teams. 2 of them against teams that are losing pretty badly. The interesting ones will be the Chicago Bulls on Friday, April 4th, and the San Antonio Spurs on Sunday, April 6th. If the Blazers are still nestled in those 8th through 11th lottery positions, the Bulls and the Spurs also reside there. So the results of those games could swing the NBA standings just a little bit. So that will be important. And, the rest of it is just, well, let's see what happens. I don't expect the Blazers to challenge the way they're playing right now, challenging the good teams, but you never know. This team does turn it around. If they do, I mean, the best thing to say is probably won't make much of a difference. You probably won't remember it too much. But what do you want to see? I think there are still 2 things that are outstanding for me. One is, look, I've seen what Ant can do. I've seen Scoot Henderson's improvements. Obviously, we've seen Avdia and Tumani Kamara. Dang, couldn't get that out. However, Shaedon Sharpe has been really up and down. And he's been featured sometimes and has come through. He's been featured sometimes and has not. He's been ignored or marginalized sometimes. I would like to see 1 or 2 Shaedon forward games. And I would like to see him be able to excel on offense and at least be mediocre on defense. But I really want to see him with the ball in his hands more. I want to see what's going to happen if he becomes one of those on-ball players that people forecast he would be great being. Personally, I have not seen it. I think he's still better receiving the ball than he is taking it off the dribble most nights. And I want to test that theory. I also think it would be good for Sharpe to have a couple of really positive games ending the season because he needs to make a further leap beginning next season. Keep in mind, after next season, he's up for a qualifying offer, which is not the end of the world. It's your 4th year of your rookie contract. But the qualifying offer, which the Blazers will no doubt either extend to him or they'll redo a new contract with him to keep him longer. There's no way that, unless they trade him, that they're letting him go. So the qualifying offer itself is not a huge decision point. It's either give him that or extend him. However, what you're extending him into and who you're extending matters. Also, it does mark the beginning of the end of him as a young player. He has one more season, really, as a young player. After that, we're going to start talking about the possibility of serious money for this guy. Obviously, he has a vested interest in earning that. But the Blazers need to know that it's time. I mean, they're going to have to make big decisions. They need to know what they are doing with him and who he is. I'm sure they have a better idea than we do, but still, we've got to know if he's got the ability to dominate, if he's got the ability to take that next leap forward. It would assure me a little bit more if he had a platform over these last 8 games where he would have a launching pad and say, well, the end of the season, it was kind of about Shaden, and he responded this way. The other guy, of course, is Donovan Clingan, and I don't expect him to make great leaps. He's already done pretty good. I don't need to see anything more of him. But every minute he gets out there, especially against starting lineups, every time he has to play 28 minutes instead of 12, every time he has to think about fouling or not fouling, where he has to think about rotations, where he has to think about, well, his teammates are leaving him out there in order to man the defense, basically. Sometimes he's the only viable option, and that might not change dramatically over the next year or two. Okay, I want to get him reps in those situations, and I don't care if the team has nothing to play for. I do care that Donovan is going to be around for a long time and wants to play more than 12 or 13 minutes a game next year, no matter who the other centers on the team are. So I want to see him get his reps. And I think these are 8 games where he can get 28 to 30 minutes against a variety of opponents, both talent-wise, but also style-wise and scheme-wise. And he needs to see that and experience it. So I am good with him playing out the string. Clingan and Sharp are the two that I believe have the most to gain in the next 8 games. Obviously, you also add guys to that like Jabari Parker and who else? Chris Murray, right? Okay, it's time for those late bench guys to be able to get up and shine. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jabari Walker, of course, is what I meant. I don't know. I haven't had a lot of sleep, guys, so I'm tired. Anyway, those late bench guys like Walker, like Murray, are the guys that you want to see step up, to compete, to stay on this roster, to not be thrown in or let go. And the Blazers are going to have to lose a couple of lower bench players just to add draft picks, let alone anyone they trade for this year. So it's time to see those guys finally come through. They're going to get their moment, I think. And Coach Billups might actually play them more just because, maybe winning these games isn't a huge priority. So we've got that storyline too. Other than that, I think it's time for Blazer fans to exhale, to appreciate how long this season got, but also how many twists and turns there were. And really to appreciate the opportunity for having done that, because really late December, we weren't thinking there were any twists and turns. We were just thinking there was a cliff, right? And the Blazers were about to drive off it, and we were speculating that perhaps by the All-Star break, if things didn't improve, the tank might be in full force. Well, to the extent it's come out, and it hasn't officially, but look, the tank is only coming out of the garage, honestly, the last 8 to 10 games of the season. That's pretty good. So, I mean, we need to be thankful that the Blazers at least had something to play for, that they turned the season around, that they went on those 11 games, that they won. And then, yes, they've had some roller coaster up and downs after, but every time they've gone down, they come back up again. And that's what you want from a young team. I think they did gain valuable experience. Now, of course, in retrospect, people are coming out and saying, well, it wasn't worth it. Well, we knew when they started winning that was true, that the best thing that could happen is the Blazers could get the number 1 overall pick this year and have the best chance to get it. Well, they're probably not going to do that, but they did gain experience, and we already knew once they started gaining that winning experience, it was going to come at the cost of those percentage points. The money's already spent. once the money's already spent in terms of getting those wins, you can't really come back and say, well, we should have done it different. The only way you could have done it different was losing those games. They didn't. And that's okay. So now I think you look at the odds and you say, okay, be better to stay in the 8th position than the 11th. Or stay in the 9th, get in the 8th, whatever. Also, I think that what you're really hoping for, the bonanza really is a top 3 pick, not just a top 1. If you can't hope for Cooper Flagg, and the odds are low of that, of course, okay, well, who else is out there? And you've got Ace Bailey, who is 6'10", who would not be a bad small forward to have, I mean, the guy's long. He's got a lot of ways to score. He has the potential to be dominant. He's not a Kevin Durant. He's not that far formed, and I don't think you're going to see anybody guarantee this guy's going to be an NBA scoring champion at some point in his career. But he's got the potential to be an honest star, and his height is going to give him an advantage. And the Blazers could use more scoring. That's not a bad get. Dylan Harper from Rutgers, right? He is a combo guard, but what the Blazers would really hope is that he could become a point guard. He's 6'5", got super long arms. He can probably defend. We know he can score. He would become that guy. And then Scoot Henderson, I'm not sure what you do with him, but you're not married to the Scoot Henderson train anymore. You have another train to jump off of, and perhaps you trade Scoot. Or maybe there's some other permutation that works. I'm not saying that necessarily they would get rid of Scoot either. I'm just saying the Blazers would have more options. They would have maybe another viable point guard to experiment with. And that's also one of the positions that's not settled. Look, that their wings, they're probably good for a while, but point guard is iffy, and center, they could probably use some improvement. Okay. If you can get a point guard and he's really super talented, I mean, he's Dylan guy. Take it. I mean, that would be, look, the way I describe this on site is that there are only a few guys who would cause you to change your plans right away. And these 3 at the top of this draft are definitely among them. Right? Dylan Harper would immediately, first of all, slot in as point guard, combo guard, I guess, but you'd want to start training him as point guard, create that Henderson variability that we talked about. Maybe they're a 1-2 punch. Maybe Henderson gets traded. Who knows, down the road. But he would say, okay, he would cause you to say, okay, we don't need to experiment with any point guards anymore. We think we've got this position covered, right? Bailey, again, would slot right into the forwards. He would give you the offensive yin to your defensive yang, and you would immediately forecast him in there to, begin his rise as a starter and into dominance as a star. And now you go, okay, we got Bailey to handle the scoring. We've got Avdia. We've got Tumani Kamara. We're good with forwards for a while. Jeremy Grant now becomes even more expendable. And I'm not saying you have to trade him this year. He could be the grandpa, the mentor, the whatever. But you have no problems trading Jeremy Grant down the road. And you have no problems maybe taking slightly less value for Jeremy Grant than you otherwise would have needed. So that frees that up. And then, of course, Cooper Flagg does all of the above. So, except for the point guard thing, but, if you have Cooper Flagg, imagine Cooper Flagg, Denny Avdia, and Tumani Kamara as your line of forwards. You would be doing all right defensively there. I think you would be okay. And probably what you do is you'd figure Avdia would be the shooting guard, and or Avdia could play with the second unit some, right? As a facilitator. But imagine that. Imagine Cooper Flagg at power forward, Tumani Kamara at small forward, and Denny Avdia as a shooting guard who can also run the offense. You have a lot of options at point guard that can make good there. Cooper Flagg can score some, probably. He's not going to be an all-world scorer, but he's going to handle his own at that position. So you probably eventually will get to 20 points with Cooper Flagg. Avdia can get near 20 points. Kamara is limited on offense, but was serviceable, like we keep talking about. But your defense is huge. If you get a reasonable scoring point guard, you've got what you need. Shoot. slide in Donovan Clingan at center. It's a super great defensive lineup. Slide in a slider or a smaller guy who can score at center, stretch the floor, and you've got a really mobile, rangy switching lineup on defense who can also spread the floor on offense. The Blazers are going to be all right. Hope for one of those 3 picks now is the lesson. Not just a flag thing, although that would be great, but any 3. Now, it'll be interesting to see whether the Blazers can actually get there. And there is where the rubber meets the road. Because from the 8th to 11th positions, obviously that you don't have a great chance. Let's put it in perspective. The bottom 4 teams will have a 52% chance. So the bottom 3 teams, will have a 52% chance of getting a top 4 pick. That goes down to 48 at number 4, 42 at number 5, 37 at number 6, and 32 at number 7. So there's a 1 in 3 chance is the lowest chance at the position the Blazers can't reach anymore. That goes all the way up to basically a 50% chance of getting a top 4 pick. Of the places the Blazers can reach, the highest percentage of a top 4 pick is 26%. That goes down to 10% at the lowest. And that's where the money is. And not even quite that. It's less than that because you want top 3, not top 4. But you get the idea. The Blazers will have a chance, but a lot of other teams have much better chances. And obviously we knew that, but sometimes staring it in the face helps. What you really want to get to that 8 slot, you got a 26% chance of a top 4 pick. In other words, a 1 in 4 chance. That's pretty close to the 1 in 3 or 1 in 2. I mean, it's half of 1 in 2, but you know what I mean. At least that's measurable. If they get down to the 11th spot and have only a 10% chance of a top 4 pick, it's kind of sad. So, long story short, what you hope for will end like we began. Just hope for the Blazers to lose. You want to go Blazers, but not very hard, right? And go Blazers into the summer. So it's a big deal, and I think that it's worth shooting for to get those extra percentages. If not, then obviously we'll be talking about players who will hopefully help the team, but not necessarily revolutionize it. Or we'll be talking about like trading some players down the road, either this draft pick or players that, that they displace, but probably those discussions will head down the road more, not be as immediate. In any case, all this is going to clear up over the next 2 weeks, so we will see you again, and we will have a much clearer picture probably of where the Blazers will end up in the standings, and also any last-minute end-of-the-season stuff. We will be reflecting on the season and moving into draft stuff as the summer progresses. So stick with us. Until then, we will remain with you in no man's land. We'll see you as the Blazers play the Knicks on Sunday, and et cetera, et cetera. And we hope that you're having a wonderful spring. And let's have fun watching the team and the sport that we love.